Cascading style sheets, or CSS, is used to control the visual presentation of web pages. I want to explore some of the basics around its syntax and give you an example of kind of how it works. So I have the hello.htm file opened up from the 01_02 folder, although to be honest with you, it's exactly what we had in the last exercise. So if you still have it open and you just want to work with that, there's nothing wrong with that either. Okay, so just a brief reminder of what's going on within the HTML of our file. We have an opening and a closing HTML tag that signifies the start and the end of an HTML document. We have the head of a document. And remember, this is where all the stuff goes that kind of makes the page work, but it's not visual. You don't actually see it. So in this case, we have a title, and that's really all we have here. And then we have the body of the page. And this is what you'll actually see in the browser. And here, of course, we only have a heading 1, an H1, and we have a paragraph. So that's really all we have going on. And if I look at that in a browser, I can see that we have the heading up top and then the text underneath that. Okay, so CSS controls styling, of course. And I'm going to embed this CSS directly inside the HTML document. This is just one of the ways that we can use CSS. A more common way to use it is to actually create it in its own CSS file and then link to it from an HTML file. But just in the interest of being efficient and being quick, I want to show you how to do it within the HTML document itself. Okay, so it's one of those things that helps make the page work, but isn't actually visual. So that's going to go in the head of the document. So what I'm going to do is right after the title, I'm going to open a style tag, and then I'm going to close a style tag. Now you can see that's just HTML. It's just like everything else that we've written so far. But the style tag tells the browser, okay, inside of this, I'm going to write CSS. So it gives you that little space inside the HTML document that allows us to write styles. If I wanted to link to an external document, I'd be using a link tag to bring in that external resource. In this case, since we're doing it within the document, this is known as an embedded style. We're going to use the style tag to do that. Okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit of room here. And now the syntax that we're going to be using is CSS. We don't need inside the opening and the closing style tag. We don't write HTML anymore. Now we write CSS. So CSS is not a markup language. It's a presentation language. So its syntax is a little different. It's essentially really, really easy. The only thing it is a selector which targets an element on the page and then rules that say, I want it to look like this. All right, so let's say we type in body. Now, this is a selector, so the text body is a selector, and what's it going to style? Everything inside this body tag. So after the selector, I'm going to open up a curly bracket, and you could find these little curly braces just to the right of the P key on your keyboard. And I can do it all in one line, but I just I've typed it this way for so long. I'm going to go down to the next line, and I'm going to type in a closing curly brace. And you can see kind of that's the opening one. It's facing towards the left, and this one is the closing one. It's facing towards the right. Now, basically, when you have a selector here, inside these curly braces is what we call the declaration block. That means, okay, style this element, and here's what I want you to style. And of course, we don't have any properties in there yet. So inside that sort of blank line in between that, I'm going to type in the word color, type in a colon, and then I'm going to type in the value red, and then a semicolon. So this basically is a property, and this is a value. They are separated by a colon, and once you're done with one property value combination, use a semicolon to move to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Then if I go back into my browser and refresh the page, you can see that all the text is now red because everything inside the body is going to be red. Of course, I can be a lot more specific if I want to. I'm going to go down to the next line and type in H1. So you can see to target an HTML element, you don't need to enclose it in tags. You just basically tell it which element you want to style. So it's really, really simple. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, which is basically give myself a little bit of empty space here and have the opening and closing curly braces. The reason that I like to sort of build those first is because if I don't, I always forget to type in the closing one. So that's something that I like to do. Now we're going to get a little bit more adventurous here. We're going to go beyond just color. I'm going to type in font-family and then a colon. And then I'm going to type in the word Arial. I'm asking for the font Arial, comma, sans-serif, and then a semicolon. So what's happening here is I'm saying, hey, the font family, the font that you're displaying this text in, I want you to change it to Arial for me. And the reason that I have two declarations here, and it's separated by a comma, I'm saying if Arial's not available, give me whatever your default sans-serif font would be. And then I'm going to go to the next line. I'm going to type in font-size, colon, And then let's make this say 32 pixels. So 32px, you'll notice the px is coming right after the 32. There's no space between them. And then I'm typing in a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and change the color of our heading too. I'll say color. In this case, I'm going to say black. There are other ways to define color, but the keywords are probably one of the easiest things to learn if you're just going to use some basic colors. So I'm going to save that. I'll go back into my browser and refresh that. Notice that the heading now changes its styling independent of the paragraph text. It's black, it's Arial, it's 32 pixels. It's exactly what I asked it for. The paragraph remains unchanged, of course, because I only targeted the H1 element. Now, much like the HTML language, there's a whole lot more CSS to learn. These are just the basic concepts of what CSS is doing on the page. But, once you understand those basics that we just covered, it's really easy to get started learning the rest of it. The syntax is really simple, as you can see. It doesn't get any more complex than this. And for the most part, it's just a matter of learning how to write which selector you need to target specific elements on the page, and then which properties and values that you need to use in order to give you the styling that you need.